All right, before I get to number 10, I just want to throw out a couple of honorable mentions. A couple of really good animated movies that year. Richard Linklater did Waking Life.
Rotoscoped animation,
Right,
Victor.
rotoscope. Yeah, that rotoscope animation style that he has returned to a couple of times since. Also, Pixar's Monsters Inc. was that year, which I thought was really great. And then a movie I've been meaning to revisit. I know one that you have watched recently and spoke very highly of, Jonathan Glazer's Sexy Beast. I have in my honorable mention list. I know it says 2000 on Letterboxd, but it didn't come out to 2001. Because Ben Kingsley, I know, was nominated for an Oscar in 2001 for that
Now
movie.
I have to change my whole freaking list. Thanks, Jake. God damn it.
Yeah, you don't have to do
Okay,
anything.
I won't. I
It's your
won't
choice. I
then.
mean, it's totally up to you. It's your choice.
I also love Sexy Beast. Let's just pretend that Sexy Beast is hovering around there somewhere, high
Yeah.
up on my list.
It's a good one. Also, I have Gosford Park, and even another Linklater movie from that year called Tape with Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman. It's about three old high school friends who are just in a hotel room and they talk about the past, and that's the only thing that happens in that movie. They all take place in one room. I like movies like that. So if you like those kind of movies, now getting into the meat of it, my top 10 is the film that won the International Film Oscar that year called No Man's Land. It's about these two soldiers who's in the Bosnia Herzegovina conflict from opposite sides of the war. They get stuck in the same trench. The rest of the movie is spent with the two of them, talking to each other, learning about each other. I haven't seen it in a long time, but I do have very, very strong memories of it. Number 9 is a film that I think gets a little bit of a bad rap. Ron Howard's A Beautiful Mind. Russell Crowe plays the mathematician John Nash, who also suffers from mental illness. A lot of people have criticized the movie for not being entirely factual, but we've talked about that on the podcast before. I don't think that's a prerequisite for making a feature film. I just think this is a very good movie.
Never did it.
Oh, you never did it? I don't know. I mean, and it's number 9 on my list. I don't know if I'd see it's like, oh my God, you have to go see this movie, but it's pretty good. Russell Crowe is really good in it. Jennifer Connelly, Ed Harris, Ron Howard he's Ron Howard. You know what you're kind of getting with him, but it's a good one. My number 8, we've talked about this movie quite a bit on our Cohen podcast. A movie that I like more than you do. I have The Man Who Wasn't There.
It's my number 15.
Oh, okay. So not too far off then. Yeah, it's about Billy Bob Thornton as a barber who, kind of gets caught up in some drama. I guess it's hard to talk about exactly that movie is without discussing every plot point. It's a noirish mystery sort of thing between him and his wife, played by Frances McDormand, and it's a good Coen Brothers film. Billy Bob pops up again in my number 7, which is Monsters Ball. With him and Halle Berry. She famously won her Oscar for that. Billy Bob Thornton, he plays a prison guard. He works on death row, and a man that he recently executed was the husband of the Halle Berry character. He ends up meeting her. They fall in love. It's in the South, so it's like an interracial romance. Very, very good movie directed by Mark Forster. My number 6 is Ridley Scott's Black Hawk Down, about the U.S. military involvement in Somalia.
I fell asleep watching this movie in the movie theater.
Oh, you did? I mean, it's a loud ass movie to fall asleep.
I saw it with my buddy Adam Novak, and he was like, "How are you sleeping?" And I said, "Honestly, very easily. This is
Did you fall
not
asleep
this
in
is not
Dunkirk
reaching
too,
me."
or
What's that?
did you fall asleep in Dunkirk too?
No, I
Yeah.
just was not compelled by Black Hawk Down in the way that I was by Dunkirk.
Number 5 is Terry Swygoff's Ghost World. It's a very quirky, very indie comedy about two high school girls played by Thora Birch and Scarlett Johansson. They're just kind of the quirky, kind of quirky indie type girls. And they meet a middle-aged guy, Steve Buscemi. He's like a record collector. Become friends and things happen, etc. It's really a wonderful movie. Steve Buscemi is fantastic, and it's probably my favorite Steve Buscemi role. Scarlett Johansson was also very, very good in this. Thora Birch also, I don't really see her around much anymore, but I thought she was really excellent in that as well.
I think that movie is very boring.
Really, I love Ghost World. Clearly.
You don't say.
Yeah. Number 4 is Todd Field's feature film debut called In the Bedroom. Todd Field has absolutely no misses. He's made 3 films. Every one of them is amazing. In the Bedroom stars Tom Wilkinson and Sissy Spacek, where the parents and their son has died. Recently, their son was dating Marissa Tomei, a woman played by Marissa Tomei, who is significantly older than their son. And this movie deals with the aftermath of the parents and the serious girlfriend trying to deal with the aftermath of losing someone unexpectedly like that. Excellent movie. Like I said, if you've liked either the other Todd Field movies, or even if you haven't seen them, I still obviously recommend this movie. It's just wonderful. Number 3 on my list is Wong Kar-wai's In the Mood for Love. We covered this on the podcast in some great detail. It's a story about love. If you want to know more about In the Mood for Love, you can refer back to our podcast about that. We spoke about it at great length. I'm so glad that I finally saw it. Obviously ranks very highly on my list for that year. And another movie that we covered on the podcast from 2001 is my number 2, David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. dreamlike movie set in Los Angeles, where we're not entirely sure what's real and what's not real. Naomi Watts stars in that. And then my number one film is one that I really, really enjoyed, blown away by the first time I saw it, and continue to enjoy to this day. Christopher Nolan's second film, Memento, about the guy who cannot make new memories and is trying to find the one man who murdered his wife.
Memento's another one that's not on my list because it's on my list from the year before.
Yeah, I think it played in like Toronto, I think in September, and then opened in the States in the spring. It was like an April opening.
Justice for Canadians. All right, cool. That's a pretty good list, except for the two movies that I think are drags.
Yeah, which is Ghost World, and what was the other one you didn't like? Black Hawk Down.
Black Hawk Down.
Yeah.
I don't like Black Hawk Down, and I know I'm in the vast minority on Black Hawk Down. People love Black Hawk Down. Okay, a couple honorable mentions from me. Two really cool, interesting French and French adjacent movies. One is Christopher Gan's Brotherhood of the Wolf. So this is a werewolf period piece starring Vincent Cassel. This movie's cool and gnarly and weird. There's some like almost Game of Thrones type elements to it. I would check that out. And then Kiss of the Dragon is a really fun, grimy Jet Li action movie where we were talking recently about how we wish there was more Bridget Fonda. Bridget Fonda is the female lead in this one. I really, really like Kiss of the Dragon. So then my number 10 is one of your honorable mentions. It's Gosford Park. This is played seriously, played straight, Clue type murder mystery, Hercule Poirot type murder mystery. So this is one of the Robert Altman movies where people are talking over each other, but it's a little bit easier to understand what everyone's saying. I think this movie rocks. This is one of Clive Owen's most subdued performances. It's got Charles Dance, so I automatically like it. And then Maggie Smith and Michael Gambon are great. And Kristen Scott Thomas is very good in this one as well. My number 9 is one that I saw pretty recently. It's called Late Marriage. It's an Israeli film by a guy named Dover Koshashvili. I think he's Georgian Israeli because this movie is about an Israeli family of Georgian origin. And Lior Ashkenazi, who plays the lead, who just like the greatest, he plays a guy who goes on these sort of arranged marriage dates with his family to meet girls and their families, but at the same time he's having an affair with an Israeli woman, and the family really does not like that. So like I said, Lior Ashkenazi's in this and he's great, but so is Moni Moshanov, who you might know from, he's in like a few James Gray movies, and I have to imagine that James Gray saw this and was like, oh, we got to get that guy. He's incredible in it. I was watching this movie on an airplane on my phone, and a graphic sex scene came on, and I had to like throw my phone in my pocket really fast. Anyway, my number 8 is Mulholland Drive. I echo everything that Jake says about it. It's one of the like hard to parse Lynch movies. This is probably the best one. My number 7 is sort of a campier, smaller thriller called Joyride by John Dahl. This is like the paperback airport novel of movies. It stars Paul Walker, Steve Zahn, and Lily Sobieski as 3 travelers who are being stalked on the highway. It's awesome. I saw this in theaters, and I'm like not a horror guy, and I was like, this is the level of thrills I can handle in the theater. My number 6 is Wes Anderson's The Royal Tenenbaums. This was the first Wes Anderson movie I saw. I love it. It's about a dysfunctional family of wealthy people, and the patriarch, who's been missing for a while, comes back and forces the family to like reckon with one another. This is like before Wes became like too Wes, although for me there is no such thing as too Wes. It's still pretty grounded. And it features a really wild attempted suicide scene. It's just like dark for him. My number 5 is Steven Spielberg's Artificial Intelligence, AI, the story of Haley Joel Osment being a robot for centuries. This movie's wild. I actually watched this on an airplane also, but I didn't have to hide my phone. It's sort of like an epic tale of a little boy about big ideas, but with relatively small stakes. This is that. It's pretty cool. I think Kubrick was originally on this, right? Wasn't this supposed to be his last movie?
Yeah, definitely. It was something Kubrick had been in development in for a long time. And just for whatever reason, never got around to making it.
Didn't he die?
That too. But yeah, I mean, it had been in development long before. It wasn't like he just, like started working on it. It'd been like decades probably he had it.
My number 4 is The Fellowship of the Ring, the beginning of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I rewatched these recently. These movies rock. The third one most of all. It used to be that the second one was my favorite. Now it's the third, but the first has the most beginning to end cohesive story that doesn't really need more story to it, whereas the second one is very much a bridging story, and the third one has a bunch of stuff before it. My number 3 is Soderbergh's Ocean's 11. It's just like one of the coolest, slickest movies of all time. Brad Pitt eats things. George Clooney has plans. I think the twist during the heist is well done. Everyone's clearly having a great time, and the most important thing is that Scott Conn is in it. So
that's right. I have that in my honorable mention list.
My number two is something that was in your honorable mentions list. It's Monsters Inc. I rewatched all the Disney and Pixar movies. I should do a Pixar ranking soon. Actually, we should both because I know you've seen them all too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I watched this coinciding with watching all the Disney animated movies again, and I was surprised at how much I liked this one and how good the animation was for the time. And then my number one is Spirited Away. This is Hayao Miyazaki's best movie. It is the second or third best Studio Ghibli movie, after a couple of Asao Takahata movies like Grave of the Fireflies and Only Yesterday, about a little girl who goes into a dream world after her parents are turned into pigs. It's amazing. Really pushing the boundaries of what an animated fantasy can be. Terrific. This, alongside something like Masaki Uesa's Mind Game, will really have you thinking, oh, American animation companies could be doing a lot more. And I guess Spider-Man Into and Across the Spider-Verse give you some of that, thank God. But we should be seeing more after what... Look, Miyazaki and Yuasa are like geniuses.
Oh, so the only reason that's not on my list is because again, it was came to
Oh,
the
one,
States.
yeah,
Yeah, it came to the States the next year.
Incredible movies. Yeah, the
Yeah,
top
it's
two.
in my list for 2002 for sure.
Great stuff. So that's it.